Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Rachel in Pennsylvania. I was wondering if Jim had any memories or anecdotes relating to Samoa Joe's fake face tattoo in TNA. I think I already know whose idea it was to do that, but I would love to hear what Jim's reaction was. I remember thinking, Samoa Joe is the biggest badass on TV. Why does he have that stupid fake tattoo now?
That's what everybody thought. And then when it would start washing off or wiping off in the middle of the match, no, it was shit stain. Because he's a complete blithering idiot, and he grew up on, okay, if he's Samoan, that means that he eats raw fish and wrestles barefoot and can't speak English like Afa and Sika. That's the first thought he had. But he knew Samoa Joe could speak English because he'd talked to him a number of times. But the more, I think actually, I'm gonna say this, I think it's correct. Some of the worst stuff they did to Joe was after Jeff Jarrett and Dixie got sideways, and Dixie told Jeff to go home, and he wasn't there to fucking rein shit stain in. But it wasn't just the face tattoo that somehow, like in shit stain's warped adolescent thinking, he always did the stuff with the women being bitches and hoes in the WWE during the Attitude Era because that was his arrested sexual development. He had only ever had, I'm talking about Vince Russo now, in case anybody's worried about who shit stain is. I want to make sure everybody puts the blame where it belongs. He'd only ever had sex with his wife, who was his teenage sweetheart, and he didn't understand the whole thing about, guys are normally supposed to go around and do these things, so his sexual development was stunted, his growth, and he watched Jerry Springer to get his ideas of how women interacted with each other and how he should interact with women, and that's how he wrote The Women in the Attitude Era. And another part of his arrested emotional development was, if you've got a bunch of tattoos, then you're a badass. That's why if you've noticed shit stain after he's been out of the wrestling business, he apparently had a midlife crisis. Now he's got tattoos up and down his fucking arms and all over his fishy, pale, white, undefined body. Because he wants to look like a supposed badass. He actually looks like he's a fucking drunken bum in Central Park that went to sleep on a bench with a goddamn newspaper open to the Sunday funnies, and his pale, fishy, white skin impersonated Silly Putty and picked up all the fucking visuals. And so he wanted Samoa Joe to have a tattoo on his face like a Samoan beast. Remember the fire dancers on Samoa Joe's entrance? Some of those people were actually relatives of Samoa Joe's. He's not denying that he's Samoan, hence the name. And his real name I can't pronounce is Samoan. But he also, as he had mentioned to me at the time when we're sitting back there while the Samoan fire dancers are doing their practicing, Joe asked me, he's like, he's aware that I'm from California and graduated college, right? And listen, Samoa Joe is conversant. He's in English like a CPA, but he's a tribal savage fire dancers and facial tattoos. Then remember when they beat him up and threw him in a trunk and kidnapped him? Some of the heels? And he was gone for a while and he found his way back somehow. Shitstain, in trying to get a lot of guys over that he didn't understand and that he couldn't fathom how you can present them as real human beings, everything has to be to the lowest common denominator, appeal to the trashiest people in the trailer park, or be the most awful example of Jerry Springer crash TV that you possibly can. He couldn't take a guy that was 300 pounds, moved like a cruiserweight, was fucking articulate and educated, and also a great worker who could come off as a badass with great promos. He had to fucking send him to Gilligan's Island and make him a fucking kidnap victim. And that basically buried everything that Samoa Joe had going for him. When he and Angle had done that little program when Angle first came in, and they did the biggest buy rate in the history of TNA wrestling, past, present, or future. That's the most. I think they did 60,000 buys, or maybe a few more, for that first match between Joe and Angle. That's the best pay-per-view they ever did, with Hulk Hogan, with Randy Savage, with whoever the fuck they ever had. And of course, Shitstain had little or nothing to do with it. It was all Dutch, just doing packages on these guys and letting them do promos and not do phony angles and see what's going to happen when the two badasses get in the ring. So then he never understood that. He couldn't understand, Shitstain, how to get guys over as real people with a legitimate conflict between them. It had to be the gaga 70s and 80s WWF bullshit. That's how he saw people. That's the whole thing with the women, because he, I can paraphrase that, like Bill Watts said, if you ever caught Vince Russo in a men's locker room, he'd be whistling Stranger in Paradise. If you ever caught Vince Russo in the middle of a goddamn sexual going on with women, he'd be whistling Stranger in Paradise. That's why he reduced them all to fucking hoes and skanks, and they like to fucking stab each other in the back. Because he never interacted with any. He didn't know how. Same thing with Samoans.